Mm-hmm. What's up? What's up? How you doing? This is your Coach Renz, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Live, where the conversation can go any direction. There's no predetermined landing point. Let me couple things over here. Put you right there. All right. So today, first of all, I want to thank everybody. Wait a minute. First, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank everybody for watching this whenever you're watching it. You know, if you're finding me for the first time, the thing that we do here is that we deconstruct religion for the most part. And in deconstructing religion, that takes us on a whole new journey. It's a whole new journey after that. And I'm here to help you through that journey, help you deal with the different things that you're going to have to deal with, the different information that's going to come your way. Some you're going to like, some you're not going to like, things you're going to attach to, things you're not going to attach to. Some things make sense, some things don't make sense. There are contradictions in a whole bunch of things. There are differences of opinions, different studies, new things are being found out every day. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, so please like and share the video. One of my favorite subject matter is who in the hell were the Anunnaki? Who in the 3 levels of hell is the Anunnaki? And there's a multitude of questions that we can get from this one. Are the Anunnaki still around? Are we the offspring or the creation of the Anunnaki? Are the Anunnaki real as far as coming from another planet, or were they already here on this planet and just another version of Earthling from a previous, more intelligent society? There is evidence that can lead a person in multiple directions of that. So we're going to talk about first, let's talk about where the Anunnaki are from. I think that's the most important part that we first need to understand. But before we get into that, I want everybody to let me know who they are and where you at. You know, I see Felicia, Ben. We're on 3 platforms. We're on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. While y'all let me know where you at, Grand Rising from Texas, Debbie, I'm going to turn the air conditioner down because it's a little bit warm in here. So give me a second. But the first thing we're talking about is where are the damn Anunnaki from? Yeah, it's like 75 degrees in here, so we need the air conditioner to be pumped down just a little bit. It's a little warm. It's a little bit warm. It's a little hot in here. All right, North Carolina, how you doing? California, PA, Pennsylvania. That's what's up. What up, Donovan? Tulsa, Oklahoma. What's up, Gucci Baker? How you doing, man? Now, I am the owner of Smoking Phoenix Cigar Lounge. If you have a problem with cigars and can't receive information or have a discussion with somebody who's smoking a cigar that you can't even smell, you are kindly welcome to leave. I'm smoking, what is this? Emperor's Cut, Natural Pleasure. So I think the first question that we have to be able to answer, and I want to hear you guys' opinion as well. I want to hear you guys' opinion. But the first question that we need to answer is, who are the Anunnaki? Are they a civilization that was here on Earth, always been on Earth, just a more intelligent, it was a previous society before Earth ending, situation like the Younger Dryas period? Or are they from, as the Sumerian story? The Sumerian story says they're from the Nibiru. According to not only Zechariah Sitchin, but other people who had learned cuneiform, they may not name it Nibiru every time, but they are saying in the Sumerian story that the Anunnaki come from another planet, a planet that has a long elliptical orbit around the Earth. Around the sun. And it says that orbit takes about 3,600 Earth years for it to be able to go a full orbit for 1 full year of Nibiru, right? So Let's talk about that for a minute. Based on the science that we know of, a planet moving at such a far distance that it would take that long, that it goes that far out, that it goes so far that it receives virtually little to no heat from the sun. At its farthest point, it's an ice ball. Can life survive? We know that for our type of life and the life of a humanoid that would have come onto this planet, you had to be in the Earth is within a habitable zone. There's a habitable zone that the Earth is in. Scientists today, they look for planets in other galaxies around other stars that may be in this habitable zone based on the size of the star. And based on the size of our star, there's only one way for a planet to be able to survive in the depths of space and support the type of life that would be able to live on Earth, right? And they would have to have their own star, a secondary star that travels with them, maybe a small white dwarf or something, or which that's not the case. That's not what they talk about. Or they would have to have an internal core, a heat. The core of that planet will have to be at such a rate, such a level of heat that it warms the surface, or at least close to the surface. We see that with, I think it's Neptune. I think Neptune's core is warm enough that below the ice sheets of the surface, there are oceans. It's either Neptune or Uranus. It's one of those two planets that's like that. You can look it up. That would be the only way. But now that would cause problems as every year for this planet, though, because adaptation, like this planet will have to change its whole society and life and be able to adapt to life within hundreds of years as it moves closer to the Earth's sun, or closer to the sun. And then as it moves away, that 36 year, like every so many couple of centuries, every animal, every plant, everything on that planet, the whole ecological system would change, and everything would have to continuously adapt to those changes. And those changes are not like, oh, it's 3 changes that it has to make per year, per 3,600 years. These would have to be changes that this is like 10, 15, 20, 30 changes that this thing that you're having to make. Mercury is too high. I missed a couple things there. Hit the like button. Appreciate that. Hit the like button. Exactly. The sun, the sun's is a whole star, a hot star. It is a hot star. Right, and Mercury's too hot. Venus is the brightest planet that we can see. But is it possible for them to be from a whole nother planet, for a society, a life to exist on a planet that has this incredibly long elliptical orbit around our sun? I think it's more evidence that they're not from another planet. Maybe they told the Sumerians they were from another planet. So, do you think that they are from another planet? I say that they're not from another planet. The story of the Anunnaki is not that they're from another planet. The story of the Anunnaki, and some people want to say that the Anunnaki come from the Pleiades. Some say that they come from the star Sirius. But according to the Sumerians, who coined them the Anunnaki, that specific Anunnaki, they did not come from another planet. They did not come from the Pleiades or from the star Sirius, but they are in our solar system. Now, there are other groups like the Hopi Indians. They say that their sky people come from the Pleiades. The Dogons, they say that the Nomo comes from the star Sirius. Well, actually, from Sirius, a planet that circles Sirius B. Could these be other beings that came to those people? It's possible. It's possible they could have saw that after the Younger Dryas period, whatever the great civilization that was on Earth had now been destroyed because of this ice age and flooding and storms and all this sort of thing, that they saw an opportunity to get a foothold on Earth. But we're speaking specifically of the Anunnaki. And I'm going to say that most likely what more evidence point towards, and how beings, intelligent beings, can lie. I think they did lie to the Sumerians. I think it's most likely that the ones that they call the Anunnaki, the ones the Sumerians thought from heavens to earth they came, which, if you think about it, if a helicopter comes flying over and you've never seen any manned machine before, from heaven to earth they came. If an airplane high up in the sky starts descending, from heaven to earth they came. Remember, the ancient people thought that big blue and white cloudy thing out there, because that was kind of weather I'm having in the metro Atlanta area today, they thought that was the heavens. And if you descended down in any kind of flying machine, from heavens to earth you came, which is what Anunnaki means. You know, the reason why the Hopi and so many other people call them sky people is because they came from the sky. They didn't come from the earth. They came from the sky. They didn't walk up. You saw them on the mountaintop and down the trail and they walked up. They came from the sky. So they call them the sky people. So they don't necessarily have to be from another planet. All they have to do is have the ability to fly, like we have the ability to fly today. Remember, well, you guys may not remember, but in studying military history, there was an island, one of the American territorial islands that nobody uses, in like this small atoll right now. But on one of the islands, these people had never seen an airplane before. And then when the U.S. went and fighting in the South Pacific, and when they flew in to these people and they removed them and relocated them to another island, they came back and they saw that these people had taken wood and built a wood-looking aircraft, and then was painting, I think, either the Red Cross symbol or the U.S. symbol on their bodies. They began to worship the pilots because they thought they were from another planet. They thought they was gods because they had this ability to fly. So we can see in recent history that was in the 1940s. So if as early as the 1940s, we can see that we can demonstrate that there were people will take something they've never seen before, that they thought was impossible for them to achieve, and then make whoever is doing it into a deity. So why not the sky people? Why not the Anunnaki? Now you have to understand. There's nothing you don't have to understand, but if you want to understand, in or around about 13,000 years ago, the earth was going through and finished off what's known as the Younger Dryas period. The Younger Dryas period is the last ice age that the earth has experienced. This ice age was pretty much an Ellie. It was a ending of life event. It was very destructive. It wasn't just an ice age that ice covered most of the northern and southern hemisphere. The other regions that weren't covered by ice, it became so cold that vegetation is not growing. Animals are still dying. This was an extinction level event. But what made this ice age worse is that we've been able to rewind the clock and look at the solar activity that was going on in and around about 9 to 12, about 12,000 years ago. About 9,000 years ago. And about 9,000 years ago, when the Ice Age was still here. And this Ice Age lasted for a few thousands of years. Like, it lasted from like 9,000 BCE, starting in around 15,000 BCE. So you got about 6,000 years of an ice age covering the earth. Most, if not most, civilizations are going to be destroyed during that time frame. Very, very thin level of civilization in and around the equatorial areas is going to be able to survive. That's going to be pretty much the only place you're going to have animal life and vegetation. The thing about it is that they've seen that about 9,000 years ago, at the time frame of this ice age still upon us, that there were an increased activity of solar spots. The problem with solar spots is that when you have a high increase of solar spots from our sun and solar flares, it messes with, I ain't gonna say mess up, but it messes with the Earth magnetic field. When the Earth magnetic field is messed up like that, more radiation and more heat pours into the Earth incredibly rapidly. Enough poured in that it melted the ice in 6 days. 6 days, it melted the ice. Usually, an ice age ending takes thousands of years. It's kind of like when we talked about the law of rhythm. As far as you swing to the right is as far as you swing to the left. The amount of energy to the right, amount of energy to the left. So the natural flow of an ending of an ice age, the ice would have melted slowly. But because of this increased solar radiation, these sunspots, and the magnetic field being jacked up on the planet, the ice melted, the majority of the ice melted in 6 days. Now, when the majority of the ice melts in 6 days, this is from an ice age. I'm talking about all of Europe covered, North America covered, South America covered, Southern Africa covered, up to mid Africa covered, India covered, Russia, China, everything covered with ice. Oceans covered with ice. 6 days it all melt. And it's funny that the TV behind me is showing Bahama life, because that's one of the evidence comes from the Bahamas. But when this ice age melted in 6 days, this created tidal waves. The sea levels rose 400 feet. 400 feet. This is why you got all these coastal civilizations, and primarily equatorial coastal civilizations, who are all talking about there was a flood in their history, right? That they had this massive flood, because it was 400. If the sea level rose 10 feet, Florida disappears. This just so you have an idea what I'm talking about. If the sea level rose 10 feet, Florida is gone. It's underwater. Whole state. Georgia got a new coastline. That's how much 10 feet mean. We're talking 400 feet. 400 feet. The Bahamas was a much, much, much larger island. All the Bahama Islands were much larger. They were more than likely all connected and weren't islands in the same sense that they're Bahama Islands as plural now, but was one landmass of an island. We see that there was a civilization there because of the finding the Bimini Road. I always try to say that one, but I get it wrong. Can't get it out perfect first time. But the Bimini Road demonstrates there was a roadway that now goes underwater. It goes from the land to a lower land parts underwater. They tried to say that it was a natural rock formation, but when you look at it, all the rocks have been set up if a rock was sitting too low that it wouldn't make a smooth road, there were rocks placed under it to lift it up. There's no way nature is making this road that all of it is relatively level in order for you to travel down it. That's why they call it the Bimini Road. And then it comes all the way up to the land, and the land parts are rocks that are set up in order to be part of a road. But 400 feet rise in sea level, and the majority of the Bahamas sinks. In Southwest Asia, flood stories about how all this water and tidal waves come rushing in and flooded the people, and they have to climb up to the highest mountains. Same thing in South America, in Peru and Chile, about this flood coming. But Chile, Peru, South America has this natural mountainous border, but the coastal land, the coastal land was flooded. Are you talking about Pangea? No. This is way after Pangea. Pangea is a whole nother bag of worms. This is only Pangea. You're talking about billions of years ago. The Younger Dryas period, we're only talking about 9 to 15,000 years ago, like that time frame. So one of the things that it did create, and this is possibly where some of the Adam and Eve story and some of the other flood stories come into play, is I've been through the gateway to the Persian Gulf, and it's a little, when you look at waterway, it's a small little strip, maybe I think it's about 5 or 6 miles, something like that, between Saudi Arabia and what is Iran, I think, or I haven't looked at it on the map in such a long time, but it's a small little strip. Let me bring it up. Let me see if I can look at it right. So what you have is, between the UAE, you got the Gulf of Oman. So between the UAE, you have the Straits of Hormuz. It's been like 20 plus years since I went through here. And then right across from that is Iran. And there's a couple little islands and little land pieces right there. It is believed that was actually a land wall right there. There was a land wall in that space. But when this 400 feet sea level rise came through, and the water came crashing through the Gulf of Oman, that it overtook that's where the water actually ended. It overtook that, and that created the Persian Gulf, and came in and washed all of that, and created the Persian Gulf, washed away every civilization that was down in there, destroying everything. Some people have estimated that the Garden of Eden, which is really the city of Eden, is 30 miles. Thank you, appreciate that. So some archaeologists, because what they have seen when they use satellite x-rays, they see that underneath the Persian Gulf, in that Kuwait City area, you have ancient rivers. Which means that land was dry at one point. At one point, that was dry. And then, of course, this is where I think the Euphrates empties out into the Persian Gulf. But that was dry land. Ancient riverbeds up under that land. The only way you can have an ancient riverbed is that the land had to be dry. It is feasible that when the 400-foot increase happened, and it wouldn't be like, it just slowly rose 400 feet. This rising would happen with tidal waves. And if you understand that type of, with solar activity being that way and there's tidal waves going, you're also going to have storms. So you're going to have hurricanes, you're going to have, torrential downpours, lightning, all this kind of stuff. So I want you to think about it. If you see tidal waves coming, all of a sudden the ocean is rising in tidal waves, and the rains are coming. The heavens gave up its waters and the oceans gave up its waters. The springs from the deep. They didn't understand tidal waves back then. They didn't. So that was their way of explaining it. If you're using it from a Abrahamic sense, if you don't look at the Noah story, the Epic of Gilgamesh just talks about it was just for 6 days. It was raining and pouring, and all hell broke loose, and it was a flood. So you have a region like the Persian Gulf being created during that time frame. Those people would have been flooded out. A lot of people destroyed. A lot of civilizations are destroyed. We have the telling of from the Emerald tablets as well as Plato and other societies. You have Thoth the Atlantean, who speaks of Atlantis being destroyed at a cataclysmic event in and around 9 to 12,000 years ago, right at the end of the Younger Dryas period. The Emerald tablets discuss how Atlantis was sank because of the floodwaters. And Atlantis was the capital city of a worldwide society that was highly intelligent, highly evolved, that utilized earthen energy. And that's the difference between us today and how this previous civilization was. The reason why the pyramids are built out of the material that they were built from, Stonehenge and all these other ancient sites, is because they use earthen energy. These things they sit on ley lines. They use material. If we were still using materials like that today, then structures that we build today would be able to last. You'd be able to last a lot longer. Hell, if we just built more things out of concrete, they would last a lot longer. Here in Georgia, you find most houses now just being built out of like steel and wood and plaster and shit like that. Big enough storm come through and tear your stuff up. But this civilization didn't build the same type of skyscrapers and things like that we build from. So that's why their things have lasted. The pyramids are that Khufu didn't build the pyramids. He did not build the Great Pyramids. The Great Pyramid was built prior to the Younger Dryas period. The Sphinx was built way prior to the Younger Dryas period. It was more than likely built about 36,000 years ago with the Sphinx, when the Sahara Desert was green, and the pyramids were built probably more around 20,000 years ago, 26,000 years ago. These things were built a long time ago. They were built way before Khufu. The Kushite people who became the Kemetic people, they just found it. It was just there after the Younger Dryas. So with that being said, it is most likely that there was a previous civilization that existed on Earth that had evolved into a different level of being. I don't think that they look exactly like us. I think they look different. I think they had a different genome than what we have, and not completely, but kind of like how, what did they say, that we share a 90-something% commonality with chimpanzees, right? But that little bit of difference makes a whole lot of difference. I thought that the original Sphinx was in the area of Leo, around the area of Leo. You mean the star system, the constellation? I'm not sure about that. So ley lines are energy lines that go around the Earth, latitude wise and longitude wise. These are supposed to be natural. I like to think of them like rivers. These are supposed to be natural rivers of energy that flow in and around the Earth, beneath the Earth, beneath Earth's crust. And at points where ley lines intersect, and they all don't go perfectly like that and down, and then like that and down. They can go at different angles. But these ley lines going around the earth, and where they intersect, there is, if we had the technology and understanding, tremendous amounts of energy that we can tap into. But it also has spirit, like, I don't want to say spiritual, like God's spiritual energy, but our spirit, it has spiritual energy as well. It draws people to those areas, kind of like a vortex. If you look at a map of ley lines and look at most of your major cities, they sit at major intersections of ley lines, like New York and London, Paris, Cairo, New Delhi, Tokyo. They come to get these cities are built on major ley lines because they have a natural energy that draws and attracts us to them. We don't necessarily know how to tap into that energy right now, but it's theorized that those beings beforehand understood how to tap into those energy. We can tap into it individually, but I'm saying as a society, as far as construction, as far as using that energy to power this building, we haven't been able to tap into it like that. But energetically, you can. This is one reason why people they get to a city and they love the energy, the vibe of the city. One of the reasons is because these cities are sitting on ley lines. But that's about as much as I know, because I studied them a little bit, but not a whole lot. Oh, you mean eras? I don't know. Let's see. It might have been built. I don't know what. I've never looked up to see what age the Sphinx was built in, because they can't necessarily pinpoint it. It's somewhere between 26,000 years ago and 36,000 years ago. So that's going to be multiple ages in between. But yeah, like we're going into the age of Aquarius in the next 100 years. So was it in the age of Leo? I've seen people say that, but I think if you say it's in the age of Leo, then you have to put it right at that. I don't even know that damn road that Leo is. Then you have to put it, yeah, right around 10,000 years ago. But it couldn't have been built 10,000 BCE. 10,000 BCE, we were still in the Younger Dryas period. It was still an ice age. It was not built during the ice age. It had to be built before it, and it had to been built when the when the Sahara was green, because the Sahara goes through a process that about every 15,000 years or so, it goes from desert to green, desert to green, desert to green. If you go back 15,000 years ago, it's past 10,000 BCE. You'd be more around 13,000 BCE, which would still put it in the ice age, in the Younger Dryas period. So you'd have to go back at least 15,000 BCE plus 2, 17,000 BCE. You have to go at least 17,000 BCE in order to be prior to the Younger Dryas period. Well, some say that the original Sphinx it wasn't a lion's head, but that it was Thoth's head. That the lion head was a secondary, was redone. What do you call it? When you remaster it, when you change it, you edit it. I don't know what you call that when you do that to like a painting or a sculpture. But it says it used to be Thoth's head, not the lion's head. And then later on, it was changed into a lion's head. I've heard about us being in a binary system with a brown dwarf star, but I haven't seen any scientific proof that we are actually in one. There are some theories about us being in a binary star system, but I haven't seen any definitive proof that we are. So I stay away from it until I find out, until I see something that leads a little bit more evidence. So y'all be getting me off track a little bit. That's cool, but that's fine though. That's what these conversations are about. Like, we ain't got to stay on one subject, but I will always come back to it. So I'm thinking that the Anunnaki, there's more evidence that shows that there's more evidence that would suggest that the Anunnaki were a group of people that was on the earth. They're earthlings, put it that way. They're earthlings. There were a different type of earthlings. Did the Anunnaki at some point, and this actually makes more sense than the Anunnaki needing to mine gold to fix the atmosphere on their planet of Nibiru, but that the atmosphere that they needed to fix was the atmosphere on Earth. That the Anunnaki story, which goes for an existence of about 400,000 years prior to our true existence, that during that 400,000 year period of their existence, that the planet that they was messing up, that they were having wars before they kind of got their stuff together, as far as being one united civilization, is Earth. Earth is the planet that they was messing up. Earth is the planet that they were having nuclear wars on, and they messed up the ozone layer until they finally decided to make Anu beat Lama's butt, and they in a battle, and then married his sister, and started the more peaceful Anunnaki civilization, which still it wasn't peaceful. It's still jacked up. Right? I don't think you're ever going to have a totally peaceful civilization. You can't. That's an impossibility. Personality, as long as there are personalities, you'll never have one. But I think Earth is that planet, is the Nibiru that they speak of, because if you think about it, you're trying to change. Look at a lot of countries nowadays or throughout history. When a new regime and they're trying to get out of the old ways, they change the name of their country. I witnessed it in my own self when Yugoslavia. How many of you guys remember Yugoslavia? I remember Yugoslavia. I remember Yugoslavia. How many of y'all remember Yugoslavia? Some of y'all might be some youngins on here. Yugoslavia is a history lesson for you. Right. Raquel? Yeah. Raquel said Raquel remembers Yugoslavia. Right, it's Earth. Yugoslavia today is Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it's another country too. Hell, I should slow. It's Bosnia. It's Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's Bosnia. It's shit. It just fell out my head. Hell, I was there. You think I remember, right? I was a grown ass man there, or I was a young man. But much like places change names, they can change names, just like Yugoslavia is now broken up into multiple countries. I think it's 3 countries now. Was like Bosnia, Slovenia, and I think it's just Herzegovina. I'm not exactly sure. We just refer to it as Bosnia so much, the Bosnian War, that you kind of like the other countries don't get any respect for their existence. So I say that to say it is not impossible to think that Nibiru, Earth used to be called Nibiru. Now it's called Earth. It was renamed from Nibiru after Ea to Earth. And now it's Earth. And they were restarting civilization. Let's re-kick it. Maybe we can do better this time than the 400,000 years that we screwed up. And is it possible? Now, I do think that after such a cataclysmic event, which would have destroyed millions, if not billions, of the previous population that was on the planet, would they now say, all right, we still got to fix this planet, so we still need to mine for gold? I do think they had colonization on Mars. As we see, we're finding out there are more structures on Mars, just like we are sending shit to Mars right now and planning on colonization of Mars. I think they had already achieved colonization on Mars, because 400,000 years ago and earlier, Mars was in that habitable zone, right? And Mars, something happened. According to the story, you have 2 different stories. You got Nibiru passing too close to Mars and Mars atmosphere getting ripped off, or another object passing by Mars and ripping off and messing up Mars atmosphere, and then they had to mass evacuate Mars. That's why but there are structures on Mars, right? So they've lost their Mars colony. They've lost the majority of people on the planet Earth. Is it possible that at some point in time that they saw a hominid that was developing on Earth that had split away from, if you look at the theory of evolution, you got a common ancestor, and then the split from that common ancestor, you get modern day chimpanzees. When people say, oh, why aren't chimpanzees evolving? Yes, no, the chimpanzee of today is the evolution of the split from the common ancestor. The gorilla is the evolution of the split from the common ancestor. And then you have us, which is the split of the common ancestor. Is how evolutionists look at it. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but you know, when people do argue that point and they try to use why aren't monkeys turning into humans today? Well, you know, because they are the evolutionary process of a split from the common ancestor. They are evolving. They have evolved. But did Enki, Enlil, Ninharsag, and Anu get together and said, we need to create a slave race to mine the gold and do all this kind of stuff, you know, to mine the gold, and because we tired of working? And, you know, the Mars colony is jacked up. Well, DNA scientists have discovered that there's an addition to our DNA that was synthetic, that looks like it was synthetically placed. Now, right now they're saying it looks like it was synthetically placed into our DNA. That means it's leading more to the Sumerian story, that whoever these previous beings were, these previous earthlings were, that they did see this split hominid. They saw that, okay, these jokers will eventually evolve into a higher conscious being. Hey, let's just take a little bit of our DNA, boop, put it in there, and we'll get them there a little bit faster. We'll get them a little bit faster. Because we do see, as the complexity of over time, each animals can become more complex. The more complex our brain becomes, the more consciousness we have, and the more we recognize, we develop reasoning, the ability to reason, I should say. So are you saying that they just changed their names to something else as time goes by? Yeah. I'm saying they changed the name of Earth from Nibiru to Earth, change who they are. And we can see that the Anunnaki does that. Enki is also Thoth. Marduk also called himself Ra, changed his name to Ra. Enki also changed his name to Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. Enlil changed his name to El, and changed his name then to Yahweh and then to Jehovah. So, and then Ilnana changed her name to Ishtar. So as they moved into different areas and dealt with different people, and as time moved on, yeah, they changed their name. They reintroduced themselves. So that's not, yeah, we do that. Hell, my middle child's boyfriend, his birth name was, what was his birth name? I think his birth name was Alex. No, that's not his. I don't remember what that boy's birth name was, because they've been together for about 7-8 years. But his name is now Alexter. He changed his name. Anything we do today, I don't doubt that a previous civilization could have done the same thing. You know, yeah, I don't think they could do the same thing, because if we can think about it, so can previous civilization. That obviously was more advanced than even still what we are today. But I don't doubt that they could have sped up our genome, which is why we are different from them, but also similar to them. Right? That we do share similarities, and that similarity also allow for what different groups, whether it is Gilgamesh or it is the Nephilim or any other half breed of Anunnaki being humanoid, Homo sapien, getting together and having a baby. So I do think that we are a blended species. Like Star Trek, they go out there and you got somebody you got a Cleon and you got a human. They got some differences, but they can have a baby. Worf had a little son. Well, not was the Worf's son who was half human. One of them jokers, but so you need proof of Mars. Well, if you look at some of the unedited photos that had to be released from NASA, look at the unedited ones. It's not just the face that's on Mars, and it's not just the pyramid that's on Mars, but there are other building, like square-shaped, rectangular-shaped building structures that are on Mars. But you have to look at the unedited ones. If you look at the edited ones, of course, they distort it. Hell, every picture you see from Mars, when Mars is looking all super red, that's a distorted picture. NASA admits that they add that reddish hue to the pictures. That is actually more of a maroon, like a brownish red, like slight brownish red, but it's not as red as they make it look. So NASA will edit the shit out some pictures and they say they do it for the public's sake too, make it look better. The picture of Earth that they always put out the Earth is not as bright of a blue ball as they make it look. It look all clean and stuff. It ain't that clean. But yeah, so some of those, there are structures on Mars. Just like there's some structures on the moon, on the dark side of the moon, that they don't talk about. And then some of the craters of the moon that they won't allow people to see. But I think that the Anunnaki did make us their cousins. I would agree with the Sumerian story of that they did make us their cousins. It's too many other stories of like in the book of Enoch, it talks about how when Zarathustra was born, that he was a son of the gods, that he looks like the shining one because he turned out to be an albino, right? And I forgot the name of Zarathustra's daddy in the book of Enoch, but Lamech was told, hey, just raise him as your son because one of the gods came and had sex with your wife. It's a popular theme back in the day, right? But that was a popular theme back in the day. No matter what culture you talked about, the guys always had sex with a woman, and the woman always wound up having a baby. And that baby is always this half breed that is not as powerful as the guys, but stronger than every other human. It's not only a biblical theme, it's a Sumerian theme, it's a Chinese, Mandarin thing, it's a Japanese story thing, it's a, Australian Aboriginal theme, the Central American theme. It's a theme that's around the world. And when you look at the Emerald Tablets, Thoth talks about how he sent other people, other emissaries out to all these other lands to rebuild the populations, after this Younger Dryas flood. So you have Ilnana going out and changing her name to Ishtar and restarting the Indus Valley, them coming over to Mexico, Central America, going to the Aboriginal in Australia talks about how the sky people came and landed on this big ass rock and, taught their people and intermarried and created babies and giants and all that sort of thing. And all of that comes from them leaving Atlantis when it flooded. So Did they mess with our genome in order to make a pretty much a slave race to continue to mine gold so that they can, one, fix the atmosphere, but two, also sustain their life to live longer? Look, there are two ways in ancient times that they talk about how they extended life. Number one was the ingestion of monatomic, well, the monatomic they runoff from gold, which I think is the monatomic gold, into their system. But first, there's a whole bunch of scam shits out there saying, oh, take this pill, it's monatomic gold. There's a bunch of those out there, so you gotta be mindful of that. Two, if you get the real thing, if you don't know the right amounts to put into your body, you will kill yourself. So I am not telling any of you to go and do this, do that. Do that at your own risk. Who was it? I think John Dees ended up poisoning himself because he was trying to figure out the right combination. But John Dees was also trying to figure out the other way. Anciently, it is said that you can extend your life. And I'm gonna do a whole video. We're gonna have a whole separate conversation about that one. And that is the process, the alchemical process of the Philosopher's Stone. I'm gonna save how to create a Philosopher's Stone, but it is said and believed that there are a few people who have created, who were successful in creating the Philosopher's Stone. Now, the Philosopher's Stone, most people only know that the Philosopher's Stone can, any kind of metal that it touches, it can turn it into gold. That's the main thing that everybody knows. And then they say that there's an elixir that run off from it, and that elixir can give you immortality. Basically, you eat it. It's not a drink, though, really. It's something you eat. You eat it, and it restores your body back to like when you were 30 years old. I would love to be that 30-year-old. Boy, I tell you. 30, boy, it was on point. It was on point. You know, I can bounce around. I can run fast. 30 was a whole different life. And I was gonna wait till I moved to Puerto Rico to make the Philosopher's Stone, because it could take anywhere from 3 months to 3 years to get it right. There's so many temperature and humidity controls that you have to have in order to do it. So I'm just studying up on it right now on one of the more possible ways of doing it. But that's a later conversation. And we're going to have that conversation when I really got it down packed on how to do it, because I don't want to be the only person doing it. Because it may not work for me the first 3 months or the first, it may take multiple tries. Is that like in the Bible where the sons of God went to the daughters of men in the Bible? Yeah, it's just like that. That theme is a repetitive theme throughout multiple cultures around the world. I mean, just look at the Greeks. Zeus was going around having babies with a whole bunch of people. That's how you got Hercules, Achilles, Dionysus was half god, half man. Atticus, half god, half man. So the gods going into, even prior to the biblical story, other cultures were talking about these deities, these Anunnakis, or who they perceived as gods, going in and having sex with women and creating babies. And all the time they were great men of renown, just like the Bible says, great men of renown. All of them were great warriors or hunters or some type of leadership. It's a very popular motif thing that happened over and over again. Gilgamesh was one, and I think Enkidu was one. This just simple life on good. Coach can't stay long, letting you know I'm still on even more than just building. My brother had had to stop by. I think before your channel gets shadowed. I think your channel gets shadow banned like the real Merkaba channel. Oh, I don't even know. What's shadow ban? Is that when they ban you without you knowing it? So anything fallen Anunnaki like the fallen angels. Some of the Anunnaki can be categorized into the fallen angel category, whereas others are not. Because when you look at the Anunnaki story, Enlil is Yahweh. So Yahweh is not a fallen angel. The fallen angel aspect of the Anunnaki story goes like this. Marduk, because Marduk is not a fallen angel. Inanna is not a fallen angel, and then Harsag, Anu. So there are plenty of them who are not so-called fallen angels. They are just different gods or demigods, or different or lower gods, like in that God council, like in Job when they're having this heavenly council. There are a bunch of them who are like that in the heavenly council, but which is basically the royalty. The fallen angel story, if they pulled it from the Sumerians, is the fact that Marduk was getting ready to marry a human because he was pissed. Marduk was like, it's my turn to rule. Y'all won't let me rule. But the only thing y'all going to give me is Egypt, is Kemet. So since y'all are just giving me Kemet, I'm going to marry me a human, just to piss y'all off. And when he was married, and that was illegal, according to the Anunnaki laws. But Marduk was going to do it anyway. And since Marduk was Enki's son, which makes him royalty, it's a little bit different. Well, the people who were on Mars was like, oh, well, hell, if he can have a wife and we ain't got no women up here, they swooped down onto Marduk's wedding, which was on top of this mountain, and they snatched up 200 women. And when they snatched up these 200 women, the Anunnaki was like, nah, y'all can't do that. And it was like, well, if Marduk can do it, then yes, we can. And since it was Marduk was on their side, they said, fine, y'all can. Just don't teach them too much stuff. But they started having babies by them, and they start teaching them Anunnaki science. And when they start doing that, and the Anunnaki children start acting stupid, the children from those unions start acting stupid after a while and start eating people. Then they became these fallen angels. And they call them fallen because they came from Mars down to Earth. Oh, when I release a video, you don't get notification. Some people get notifications, some people don't. This notification thing is crazy. So I don't know. Because when I bring up the YouTube, sometimes people start populating it before I even turn it on. But, and I mean, that's a thing. That those types of things are popular. And as far as falling, they're not angels, they're just earthlings. They're Nibirians, Anunnaki, who are earthlings. I used to be an American, and now I'm Guyanese. Now I'm from Ghana. I used to be Nigerian, but now I'm an American. I used to be, French, but now I'm German. So you got these stories that all demonstrate that, but you also have archaeological evidence of some of these things. Now, the giant thing, I'm still a little wishy-washy on that. As far as, is the Smithsonian hiding giant bones? I did find it interesting that the only museum that cannot be investigated in America is the freaking Smithsonian. Like on those Freedom of Information Act documents and things of that nature, it will specify that you cannot investigate the Smithsonian. So is the Smithsonian hiding stuff? It's the only reason I would have to say yes. When you put yourself in a position where you cannot be investigated by the United States government or any outside entities, you hiding something. You doing something you ain't supposed to be doing. Now, I know that museums do have things that they don't want us to know. Most of y'all know stories. Most people knew about U.S. military forces finding gold and caches of money and all that sort of thing during Desert Storm. What a lot of people don't know, a lot of the historical things in Hussein's palaces, as well as in the museums, were taken. Hundreds of thousands of tablets, Sumerian tablets, Babylonian tablets, were stolen and sent off to different museums, the British museums, the French museums, and the American museums. Hundreds of thousands of tablets, hundreds and thousands of statues, pottery, coins, all these things. Hell, I know some just American military guys who took coins. And I'm gonna say, now let me say it right, stole some damn coins. And what's funny is that a lot of it was confiscated. You know, these guys trying to leave Saudi Arabia. I mean, yeah, Saudi Arabia, you know, wherever they was leaving from over there. And when they getting their stuff checked, they got some damn coins that when they was in a museum or something like that, or some rich person's house in Iraq or Kuwait. And they like, dude, you can't take that coin. But then those coins didn't hit any manifest to go back to those people. Those coins disappeared. Those pieces of pottery disappeared. Shit. I got back and I seen dudes. I was like, dude, what the fuck? Man, I was like, get that shit away from me. I don't want to deal with you. Especially, let me tell you, them MPs and those supply people, when I tell you, they was taking some shit. They was taking some shit. Whole bunch of them. You probably got some guys my age and older who are sitting at home and they got some Babylonian coins, some Sumerian coins, some vases and shit in their house, in their basement. And this is valuable history. So we stole some shit. So do I think that the Smithsonian might be hiding something concerning skeletons of these half breeds? It's possible. Who the hell built Petra, the temple at Petra? Who was those big giant steps for? Who are those big giant doors for? And other places around the world like that. These steps don't make sense for these steps to be giant, huge, but these are supposed to be the steps of the giants, the steps of the gods. So they're built huge. Right? Easter Island. We see the Easter Island heads, but we know that there's a whole body up under there. There's a whole body. It wasn't a statue where it was just a head sticking out. They built a whole body. It was a whole body sticking up. Right? So I do think the Anunnaki, the Earthlings, the pre-Earthlings, are the ones who manipulated our genome, who were the so-called gods of old. Like, none of these religious books, none of these ancient religions are talking about the creator of the universe, because even the Anunnaki believed in a creator, right? That there was a creative energy that manifested the universe. They are not the creators of the universe. They may say they created man. They may say that they, were the gods of earth, but they were not the gods of the universe. They never claimed to be that, the gods of the universe. They had a belief in a higher consciousness themselves, which, kind of escapes me of how, well, no, it doesn't. I get it. For the people back then, there was always, whoever they worshiped, they just believed they defeated the previous. It's kind of like with the Greek story. Zeus is the primary god, but Zeus and his brothers defeated the Titans, and the Titans came out of the Greek entity chaos. So they had this lowering of the divinity who was able to beat the higher divinity. And it's always the son who is beating the father, right? The Christianity just goes, the son becomes one with the father. But previous ancient civilization, the son was always overthrowing or defeating or inheriting from the father. So for the Sumerians to accept that from the Anunnaki doesn't change anything. Even though Enlil is the god that they worship, they know Enlil is born from Anu. And so it's not outside of their way of thinking. But the Anunnaki believed in what the Kemetic people would call the Ogdode, which is the celestial mind that is broken up into four major parts. And inside each four major part is a masculine version and a feminine version, the two energies of generation. I think the Anunnaki wanted to be worshipped even though they weren't the true creator. Of course. Let's be real. Just because we see how power plays today, America wants to be the top dog in the world, the most powerful country in the world. And it's doing something right now that's going to make it very much more powerful in the next 50, 60 years, right? There's a reason why we don't use our own oil and we buy it from everybody else. We're waiting for the world to run out. And then America will be the oil king. You know, I think Saudi Arabia will be out of oil in like 50 years or less. Dubai will already be out in like 20 years. No, I think they got about 7. I think they'll be out around 2030. You know, they kind of pissed. Nigeria's finding all this oil and other people finding some more oil. But and India is pulling back on their wheat, their grain. Yes, it's wheat and grain, that they're not going to sell their wheat and grain to nobody else outside of India. I think it starts 2030 or 2050 when they're going to start that. America is just like, yeah, we got the land. We can make our own wheat. We just waiting for y'all to run out. We got oil. We just waiting for y'all to run out. Once everybody run out, then y'all got to all come to us. And now we set the price. We set the tone. We got the biggest military. So what you going to do? You're not going to come take it. You're not going to start a war for that resource. So what you going to do? You're going to pay the piper. So the Anunnaki, same mindset. Oh, these beings are beneath us. We are going to rule over them as gods. Every form of slavery has been that same way. Oh, you are beneath me. I'm going to rule over you. Oh, every form of empire or kingship or fiefdom is I'm going to rule over those who I deem as less than me. So the Anunnaki are going, yeah, they would have the mentality to rule over this being that they say, you know what, this being is, you know, for them and their mindset, part monkey, part Anunnaki. So they're not full Anunnaki. They can't be a part of us. Look at even within their own understanding, depending upon what era that you're reading from, if it's whether it's Sumerians or Akkadians or Assyrians or Babylonian, the Anunnaki most of the time look down on the Agigi, which the Agigi are a part of the pre-Earthlings, you know, the pre-us. But they look down on the Agigi. Now, sometimes, depending upon whose story you're reading, whose version, the Agigi are in charge, are higher than the Anunnaki. So it's Spartacus. The Agigi had their own version of Spartacus and had a slave revolt and wreaked havoc on the empire until the empire finally gained control again. I say that because it's about time for my annual viewing of the Spartacus series. I watch the Spartacus series every year, once time. I don't know why. I know why, because I love it. It's a great show. Great show. So you can have there's nothing more special about them than that differs about them, what makes them more special than who we are. So, and I think that's there's a guy who comes on my YouTube and he always saying, I don't know his name. I'm gonna remember his name next time I see him say it. Agigi is like Iggie, I think. But it starts with the I. I may be saying Agigi, but it's Agigi. It starts with an I. But there's a guy who comes on YouTube and he's always saying, you know, all hail to our Lord Enki. Enki had the mindset that we can become just as great as any other Anunnaki and even greater than Anunnaki. You know, that our consciousness can expand and grow and continue to develop as much as anybody else's. So that's one thing I will give Inky. Inky wasn't always great. I mean, Inky he had his own self-interest as well. So, which if Inky is Thoth ain't always great. They all have their own self-interest. Just as we all have our own self-interest. You know, little plug. Y'all share this video. Share these videos. Share the channel. Make sure your bell icons are on. You know, yeah, yeah, thank you. IGIGI. Thank you, Stanley. You know, once spell check came out, my spelling abilities have drastically diminished. And that autocorrect, I can't spell no more. But yes, we can become just as higher conscious being as any other conscious beings. And as each generation, this is why if you do look at man's history, I know this is a little sidebar, but still part of it. If you look at our history, especially from the Younger Dryas period to today, you may say that some things were just so culturally based, and that's why so many things were so jacked up. But when you look at the basic morality of people back then, and look at it from a standpoint of the complexity of civilization, I'm not saying we were so much smarter than our ancestors in the past, but we were. From 9,000 years ago, we are more intelligent than they. Our brain complexity has increased every century, which is why our civilizations have become more complex every century. Our moralities have actually gotten better every century. You know, only an idiot talks about the good old days. And I know we look at it's hard for us. We'll say, man, these kids today, boy, I don't know what's wrong with them. Every generation, I always think the next generation is jacked up. My grandfather and them thought that we was jacked up. You know, but then I used to look at my grandfather and I would say things like the way he ate. I was like, I got my ass whooped one time because you know, my grandfather eating pig feet and pig ears and all that. And I was like, Granddad, why you eating slave food? I said that to him one time. Why you eating slave food? And he got mad. And I was like, we can eat the whole pig now. I mess with jokers in here when they go to the Caribbean restaurant 3 doors down, they get some oxtail, right? Which I always want, you know, why y'all calling it oxtail? It's a freaking cow. You can eat the whole goddamn cow. Why are you eating the tail? You got a whole cow. Eat the whole cow. Quit eating the leftover parts. That's what we had to eat when in slavery. You ate the leftovers. So I got my ass whooped for telling my grandfather he eats slave food. Right. Every generation always think that the new generation is worse than what they were, but the new generation is also have a greater understanding and are more progressive than the previous generation. You know, slavery would not have been a sustainable thing, not just economically, but morally. Slavery became something that around the world became like a hell no, immorality. The treatment of women as property became an immorality. The treatment of children as property became an immorality. You know, our complexity of reasoning and morality gets better and better century after century after century after century. Technologically as they were compared to a lot of other places, they were some sick ass individuals when it came to the value of human life, right? They had, I mean, we go to a football game and yeah, when somebody hits somebody hard, it's like, pow, we're like, oh, that was a good hit. But when that person is hurt, we don't revel in it. You know, we all get silent, and we all are. For those who pray, pray. For those who don't pray, hoping that the dude is all right. You know, anytime we see somebody injured, I'm a fan of wrestling back in the day. When Sid Vicious came off that top rope to do a leg drop, and his ankle hit the ground, and that leg broke. Even though he was supposed to be a bad guy, he was like, "Oh, you know what? Your morality kicks in." That's ooh. Oh man, that's messed up. We are better. We increase in our morality each generation, each century. So we have the possibility of becoming higher and higher conscious beings as we go through life, as each generation and generation comes. And we are more moral than previous generations. We are more, we are more intelligent than previous, what we are generations. Pre-pride younger dryas, we ain't got there technologically wise. But morality wise, we have more morality than the Anunnaki. I don't think that if we were able to go to another planet, I don't believe we would turn the inhabitants of that planet into a slave race, that we would turn it into a slave colony. The world would be like, hell no. You cannot go to another planet. I don't think we would go to another planet and make those people believe that we are gods. Hell, the writers of Star Trek demonstrated that. That was the prime directive. Star Trek first version, Captain Kirk, they didn't have the prime directive. Generations, they had the prime directive. You know, demonstrating a higher form of morality. If they're not a warp capable civilization, then you don't show yourself to them, because they will think that you are gods. We wouldn't do that. And even when those people in the South Pacific thought that the American Air Force people were gods, they came back to let them know we are not gods. The airplane is not a god. It's just a machine. You know, we're just as human as you are. I think especially in America, they used to have human zoos for us black folks, which is also degrading and racist. Yes. But you wouldn't be able to get away with that today. The closest thing you're going to get to a human zoo is a circus. And those are incredibly talented people. I don't like going to a circus, but those are incredibly talented people. Hell, we are starting to even get more and more into the idea that we shouldn't have animals in zoos, and are reintroducing animals back into their natural habitat more and more often. Hell, zoos are actually losing money compared to what they were doing when I was a kid and when my grandparents were the kid. Zoos are losing money. So we do have a higher morality than they do, than the Anunnaki. Which just having a higher morality makes us better than them, just in a moral sense. Not better than them that we should rule over them or lord over them, but just better to them that we have progressed past their levels of morality. Because if you were to believe some of the other stories, then you would believe that the Anunnaki are existing in Antarctica right now, living in not a hollow earth, but inside of a cavernous area in what's the place? Antarctica. And that is why the Germans were going down to Antarctica, and then every time they come back, they would have weapons that were well beyond that. The Anunnaki are manipulating Earth leadership, because one of the last mentionings of the Anunnaki was that Anu decreed that the Anunnaki were going to step out of the picture, but those who had more Anunnaki bloodline will become the kings and queens of Earth, of the different countries, different territories. And this is why you had your people like Charles II of Spain his dad was also his granddaddy. All right, because they're keeping that bloodline. But that shit also creates retardation. But this is why the old Lizzie was pissed off when the boy went and married the mixed girl from Canada. Now, this is why Noah's mom is also his aunt. Not Moses. I mean, not Noah. Moses. Moses' mom is also his aunt. You know, these bloodline things was a setup by the Anunnaki to do intermarry. Hell, Anu's wife was his sister. You know, with the Anunnaki. So Anu was supposed to be the great king of the Anunnaki, the last great king of the Anunnaki, and his wife was his sister, according to the story. So there is that theory out there that there's that the true Illuminati is actually those who are in the more direct bloodline of the royal Anunnaki bloodline. That is the true that's the true story. That's the true Illuminati. Even though that's bullshit. Adam Weishaupt started the Illuminati of his own regard. Unless you're saying Adam Weishaupt was, you know, had more Anunnaki blood, and nobody can prove that. But we've had leaderships come up through time where the only reason that person became a leader is because they were able to get people to follow them, and they started a war and they defeated they defeated the other people and then declared themselves royalty. We have that happening repeatedly, too many times, which would take away a lot of that Anunnaki royalty BS. And then look at these so-called royal families today. They ain't ruling shit. The only true royal family that runs countries, you got the Saudi families. Shit. That's about all you got, isn't it? You got the Saudi family. I think maybe the King of Monaco. But you don't have any royal families that actually runs the country. The British royal family don't run the country. They don't have any power. They can't declare war and all that shit. They can't increase taxes and all that. There are no American royal families. None of the Americas have royal families. The Japanese emperor don't run shit. There's no Chinese emperors. The Indian, there's no royal families. Only just the Saudi royal family. So if that was their plan, it has failed. It has failed miserably. Is this still alive because something happened? Yeah, I'm still alive. Not gonna be live for much longer though. Got a few things I gotta take care of today because today is gonna be a short day. Gonna be a short day. Getting behind. I just talked about zoos and stuff, right? I'm going on a behind the scenes tour of the Georgia Aquarium. So I'm going to see the stuff that the regular folks don't get to see. I'm going behind the scenes, going behind the tanks, going in the back rooms of the aquarium today. So I got to get stuff done before I go there. But yeah, for most of the evidence that we have today and deciphering of things, I think there's more evidence pointing to the fact that the Anunnaki that Nibiru is Earth. The Anunnaki are a pre-Younger Dryas civilization that thrived for hundreds of thousands of years on Earth. They probably came from another pre-Earth civilization, or could have come to the Earth from another planet, but yet still been on Earth for at least 400,000 years before the Younger Dryas. Sometime either before, most likely before the Younger Dryas, they start messing around with human genome. came into full impact after the Younger Dryas period with manipulating man's genome and creating us. More than likely, though, we weren't our full selves. If you look at how they talk about messing around with man's genome, there were actually 16 different versions of the experiment before they got to us. I don't think they got to us until after the Younger Dryas. Prior to us, they created the Neanderthal and the Cro-Magnons and all those other types of man. But as they kept increasing their genetic influence, they finally got to us, right? Because when you look at a lot of the ancient fossils, these fossils are not us. They're cousins of us, but not us. They're not, they're not who we are. They're not the complexity that we are. You really don't get our complexity until maybe 50 to 75,000 years ago. At max, 125,000 years ago, you get us. And that's at max. Prior to that, you have variations of us. And let me just go ahead and say this. This is not going to be popular, especially for Black folks. Lucy is not us. It's not even connected to us. Lucy is an ancient chimpanzee. Okay? It's an ancient chimpanzee. Lucy is not us. All right. Now, if Adam's calendar turns out to be 200,000 years old, then us goes back 200,000 years. But Lucy is not us. Lucy's a chimp. She's an ancient chimp. So Homo sapien, or some people like to call this Homo sapien sapien. I don't know why they do the sapien sapien. At best, 200,000 to 125,000 years ago to today. Of the variations of cousins of us are the ones that are going back further and further and further. And you also had versions of us that predates the Anunnaki. But the Anunnaki didn't need it. It's kind of like today. We don't need perfect movie, because y'all know I love my movies. We don't need a slave force, so we would not mess with chimpanzees' genome, right? But the original version of the Planet of the Apes is the Anunnaki story. It was them messing around with the monkeys, the chimps, the orangutans, the gorillas, and bringing them into our society as a higher conscious being. And they were pretty much slaves of the humans. And then they took over and it became Planet of the Apes. And when they took over, they shedded a lot of the technology that man had created and kind of restarted the civilization into a more prehistoric civilizations. This is why when you get Planet of the Apes, it's not as developed, because they made the monkeys. The monkeys were all the different monkeys were slaves to the humans. Then there was like a nuclear war, and then after the nuclear war, the monkeys survived and they dominated. They began to dominate man, broke out of their slavery, and then they ran society, and man was now the slaves to the monkeys. I know the newer versions, it's all about a disease that spreads and all this kind of stuff, and the monkeys coming into, higher consciousness because of experiments done on them. So, and then you get hundreds of years later before they develop into how we are today. Depending upon which version of that movie that you're watching. What's the little Singer Boys version, and then you have the most recent version. But the original, so you got 3 different versions of the Planet of the Apes story. Those stories are pretty much the Anunnaki story. But we aren't. If we did some dumb shit like that, we could possibly do some dumb shit like that today. We possibly, and I wouldn't doubt it, if we have the technology today to add some of our genome to a chimpanzee to make that chimp more intelligent and start to develop more consciousness of self and develop the ability to reason, I wouldn't be surprised if we could do that today. It'd be stupid for us to do that today, but I think that we probably could do it. I'm pretty sure somebody's trying to do it. One of the biggest problems with scientists is that sometimes scientists do shit without thinking about the long-term repercussions of the things that they're doing. It's not a can I do this, but should I do this kind of thing. You know, kind of like with AI right now. It's not a should I do it, it's not a can I do it, but should I do it sort of thing. We are 12-strand multidimensional beings. 226,000 years ago, they hit Atlantis with a solar pulse on the ley line along the mid-Atlantic Rift. That's when they knocked up on planet Earth, tilt, and cut off our connection to source. That sounds like what is it that old boy called it? The Lucifer experiment, trying to create a synthetic Merkaba. Is that what you're talking about, Laura? I haven't heard it explained that way, but it sounds like when the Lucifer experiment was trying to create a synthetic Merkaba, which threw everything off and cut us off from, and supposedly cut man off from his connection to divine source, which prior to that, we didn't speak like we speak now. We were telepathic, you had more stronger mental capabilities. You still have those mental capabilities, but they were stronger. Heck, there's been plenty of times I'm sick. If you're around somebody long enough and with them long enough, and you literally, you will start to pick up their alpha waves, their thought waves. Because every thought that goes out of your mind leaves you as a frequency. We have the antennas to pick them up, but we don't really fully grasp how to use them. And I've seen it demonstrated in my life in simple things. What was it? I was sitting there thinking we was getting ready to do something, and my lady she wasn't around me because she couldn't see what I was doing, but she knew. But I was thinking about I needed something, and she brought it into the room, and I was like, "Girl," of course we say things, get out of my mind, or you're both sitting there, you ain't talking. You're not looking at the same thing, but the same thought comes into mind. You get ready and you both say it at the same time or something like that. And it's like, will you get out of my mind? You can receive another person's thoughts. But I'm gonna make this one a little bit shorter today because I got some things to do. It's after 12 o'clock, 12:30. Y'all always trying to type something when I'm getting ready to close out. The people who say we come from Lucy can't see that Lucy looks like a monkey or a chimpanzee. The powers that be are basically trying to low-key call us monkeys now when they say we came from Lucy. Yeah, we did not come from Lucy at all. Lucy's throat, just look at Lucy's throat chamber. Lucy's throat chamber has the ability to make sound and drink at the same time, to be able to talk and drink at the same time. You can make a sound when you drink. You can drink something. You can be like, you can hum, but a chimpanzee and a gorilla can actually talk in their language, and whatever the noise they make, all that shit. They can do all of that while they are drinking. We cannot. We have a little flap in the back of our throat for esophagus and windpipe. When you're drinking something, eating something, that flap goes over and covers your windpipe. So yeah, I say esophagus and windpipe. That's the same goddamn thing. For your esophagus, and I forgot what it's called, the one that goes to your stomach. But we have a little flap back there. I actually amazed some doctors one time because I can depress my tongue low enough that you can see that flap. Y'all ain't gonna be able to see it on this he had to have a little thing, you know, he had the light and all that kind of stuff. And then he called the other doctor and he was like, come check this out, come check this out. Right. And it was, I don't know, it's just when they do that, I take a deep breath in and my tongue depresses very low and they can see the little flap. And that's when I actually first found out that there was a flap that goes back and forth, you know. But somehow gorillas and chimps can drink like that. Lucy has that ability to do that. And chimpanzees today, gorillas today have that. Lucy is an ancient chimpanzee. She is not us. Might be a distant cousin, but she's not us. But let's sum it up. Let's end it up. Appreciate you guys as always. But we got to close out. So I got some business to handle. But I appreciate you guys. I look forward to tomorrow where we're going to finish up the book, The Kabbalion. We'll finish up The Kabbalion tomorrow with the axioms and then summarize it, the entire thing. And I'm going to tell you how to put it all together. I'm going to tell you how to put all the hermetic principles together to manifest whatever it is you're trying to manifest. And it's not just about material things, but it's more about manifesting a higher consciousness and a higher morality, right? Manifesting a higher consciousness and a morality does fly in the face of most religions, because if we all manifested a higher morality and a higher consciousness, we would have basically world peace. We will pretty much eliminate hunger and poverty and all other things that strangle us. We will be able to advance in the right way. So we're going to finish covering that up tomorrow, and then Friday I have no idea what we're going to talk about. But I do appreciate you guys continue to share the videos. I know yesterday I said that I was going to be putting all of my different hats, especially my cowboy hats that I wear, so people who really like them want to buy them. But the photo shoot was horrible. When I looked at the pictures, they look horrible. So, and it's my face, my head, and it was midnight when we took the pictures after me working 14 hours. I was tired. I looked like shit on those pictures. So those pictures cannot be used. So I got to redo them Saturday morning. I'm gonna retake those pictures, but I'm fresh. You know, got the white that's still in the eyes, not tired eyes. So I know I said that they'll be done sooner, but just want to let you know they're not. But I appreciate everyone for being here. Continue to support the channel. Continue to, show your love by supporting the channel in whichever methodology you decide that you want to support the channel, whether it's financial or it is by sharing it to other people. Please continue to do that. I appreciate it. For those of you who have wanted to buy any of the cigars, any of the cigars from my cigar lounge, you can go to my website, Smoking Phoenix Cigars. And the website, I was just checking it to make sure. The website is now up. There are a few things I see that I need to take off of it, though. Yeah, there are a few things I got to take off of it. I got to take all the popcorn stuff off of it. So don't order any of the popcorn stuff. I'll tell you right now. Don't order any popcorn stuff. Don't order any candy or just cigars, just the cigar stuff. I'm going to go on. That's why I got to get off here so I can go in here and take some of this stuff off. The cigar things will become, I will add more and more cigar items on here because we're getting ready to add more and more cigars to the lounge itself. So y'all have a great day. Remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Let's end that one. Let's end that one. And let's go over here and let's end this one. Thank you guys. Oh, we're going to be live at 10 o'clock, around 10, between 10 and 10:30 tomorrow.